Hello everyone. In this particular video, we are going to discuss how was it possible for me to secure a rank in my examination with only 2 revisions and 3 readings in totality. I would also clear the myth that 6 or 7 times of reading is required in order to secure a rank in CA finals or CA intermediate examination. So for those of you who are asking me how I had revised my entire content and how I used to mark in the first reading itself, here I am preparing a detailed video for all of you. So let's watch this entire video in order to understand how is it possible to get a rank in 2 or 3 readings maximum. So first of all, let me clear this particular myth of all the CA final or CA intermediate students that it is not necessary at all to read the entire curriculum for 5 to 6 times to secure a rank or to clear any kind of examination. Rather, the quality of your reading matters a lot rather than the quantity of your reading. I've seen students who had read the curriculum for 5 to 6 times but still they have failed in their examination. On the other hand, I've also seen students who had read the entire content only a couple of times and have still cleared their examinations. So it is only up to the quality of your reading and the concepts which are clear to all of you. So I'll just give you my personal example. I used to read the modules and the reference notes. I already shared this in the video of CA final subject wise strategy, and in my first reading I used to ensure that I have no doubt pending during my second reading. So keep this particular thing in mind that during your first reading itself, try to be very conceptually clear about all the concepts which are taught, so that in your second reading you are confident enough to solve the sums or memorize all the concepts or provisions which are taught. So this is very necessary that you need to be conceptually very clear during your first reading itself and get all the doubts solved by your friends or tutors or some external mentors, so that you are very confident in your second reading. So I had also done my first reading with this particular attitude, and during my second reading it was very easy and quickly for me to revise the entire content in a span of 4 to 5 days for each subject maximum. So keep this particular thing in mind. Secondly, I would like to state that for practical subjects like FR and SFM, try to solve the practical questions on a separate piece of paper for which the answers are very lengthy. For instance, topics like financial instruments, consolidation or business combination, these are some of the topics which are definitely going to be asked you to in the examination. Try to solve them on a separate piece of paper and try to write their answers by yourself. What usually happens is that when you try to solve them on a separate piece of paper, you gain a lot of confidence. If on the other hand you are directly writing that particular answer in the examination, it is going to be difficult for you to write the entire answer without getting stuck up in between. So this is my personal experience, and I had also solved the FR and SFM practical questions on a separate piece of paper. Keep this thing in mind that there are a lot of questions which are quite easy. So I used to solve those questions on my calculator itself, and I used to solve them using the audit tick approach. However, there are few questions which are quite difficult and which are quite lengthy. So for them, I used to solve these questions on a separate piece of paper so that I don't get stuck up if these questions come in my examination. So remember that all the difficult questions which you think may be asked in the examination or are lengthy or tricky ones, just mark them as R. I used to mark them as R for revise, and I used to revise these questions 1.5 days before the examination. So keep one thing in mind, that if there is any particular question which is very easy for you and which you are able to solve it without even looking at the answer, try to eliminate this kind of question, because you know, even if this question comes in the examination, you are easily going to solve this particular question because you have already solved it once by yourself without even looking at the answer. So try to eliminate these kind of questions and focus only on those questions which are quite difficult and which, if they come in the examination, you would get stuck up in between while writing the answer in the examination. So mark these questions as R and try to revise these questions only 1.5 days before the examination and during the second reading also. Speaking about theoretical subjects like law or audit, for these subjects what you should ideally do is that try to highlight the keywords in each and every provision. Now speaking about law, I had referred Munish Bhandari's reference book, as I told you in my earlier video also. What I used to do, I used to mark the important provisions on which ICAI has asked a lot of questions in the previous attempts. So I used to mark the keywords in those provisions, and for those provisions which were not asked at all in the previous attempts, I used to ignore them, or rather I used to read them quickly. So I didn't used to memorize them as such, but I just used to glance them quickly so that if they come in the examination, at least I should know some content which I can write, and at least I can gain 1 mark out of 4 marks. So this was my attitude for law and audit. I used to revise those concepts which were frequently asked by the institute, but institute is now asking a lot of questions which have not been asked in the previous attempt. So for this, what I would recommend you is that for audit and law, there are a lot of bullet points given in the modules. So try to memorize the bullet points and try to memorize the keywords which are mentioned in those bullet points. There are high chances that ICAI is going to ask you questions from those bullet points itself. See, there's a very simple logic to this particular analysis which I am doing, that ICAI is going to ask questions from bullet points. If ICAI asks questions based on long paragraphs, and even in the suggested answers there are longer paragraphs, the mindset of examiner would be such that he is not going to read the entire paragraph. He is just going to read the keywords in the model answers and the keywords in your answer sheet. If they match, then he is going to give you marks. If they don't match, he is not going to give you marks. So my analysis is that bullet points questions would be asked frequently as compared to the longer paragraph questions, because the examiner is going to read the bullet points answers quite quickly as compared to the answers of the long paragraphs. So therefore try to remember all the bullet points keywords so that you can write them in the examination, and during your first reading itself try to write on the top side of the module or the top side of the reference book which you are referring whatever is the key content on this particular page. This was my strategy. What I used to do, I used to write whatever are the keywords or whatever are the key points given on this particular page on the top side of that particular page. So while revising, it was very easy for me to revise the entire content, because I knew that on this particular page this chapter or this particular provision has been written. So it used to be quite easy for me to revise the entire content because of this particular strategy of writing it on the top side of the page. I didn't used to write it on a separate notebook as such because I didn't have that much of time. However, if you have a lot of time for your preparations, I would definitely recommend you to make your own notes for law and audit so that you can revise the entire content within a span of 1.5 days. Because writing is almost equivalent to 5 or 6 times of reading, and with writing your memory increases a lot. This is scientific study, and as you all know, writing is equivalent to 5 or 6 times of reading. So I would recommend all of you to write at least on the top side of the page if you don't have time to create notes. If you have time to create notes, then well and good, try to create your own notes, but then at least try to write the important provisions on the top side of the page so that while revising you know what content is there on this particular page. So this was the strategy which I adopted for my theoretical subjects, and during my second reading I just used to read the highlighted portion and the questions which I had marked as R. So I used to mark those questions as R, which almost contained all the particular sections and all the particular provisions of that particular section. For instance, in Munish Bhandari's reference book, there is a question of section 164 that contained almost all the provisions of that particular section. So I used to mark this question as R, and I used to ignore the other questions because I knew that this particular question contains almost all the provisions given in section 164, that is disqualification of directors. So mark those questions which contain all the entire content of the provision so that you are able to revise them effectively and efficiently during your second and third reading. So remember this particular thing. I'll just like to conclude by summarizing. You have to focus on quality reading rather than quantity reading. During your first reading itself, you have to ensure that all the concepts are clear. You are not in a position to ask doubts in your second reading, and try to ensure that your second and third reading is very quick and very fast in terms of your memorizing and in terms of solving the questions. So with this kind of attitude, I think you can also get very good marks in your CA finals or intermediate examination, and I think with this kind of attitude you can definitely ace in your examination. So just keep this particular thought in mind, that wake up with a lot of determination and go to bed with satisfaction. So when you have studied an ample amount of time for the entire day, you can go to your bed with satisfaction, and if you keep this kind of attitude, you are definitely going to ace in your examinations. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video was useful for all of you. Do comment your queries if you have any in the below comment section. As per my time and availability, I would definitely reply to all your comments. And if you like this particular video, do share it with all your friends and subscribe to my channel so that I can prepare more videos for all of you. Thank you so much for watching the video. See you in the next video.